Welcome to Starbound. My name's Aram, and I'll be your narrator today. Nearly 500 supporters get early access to our stories, including brand new episodes of Sunspire Academy and Freyrin and Remike. If you'd like to unlock early access and support new episodes and future series, tap Join below to become a Starbound member. Now, let's get into today's story. Ray Okoa stared at the orange pill bottle in his hand, the fluorescent lights of the station bathroom making the white label seem almost ethereal. His reflection looked back at him, dark circles under bloodshot eyes, 5 o'clock shadow threatening to become a 6 o'clock disaster, while behind him, a shimmering, translucent figure hovered near the door. Ray muttered something, avoiding looking directly at the hallucination. That's what the doctors called them anyway. Visual and auditory hallucinations resulting from atypical neural pathways, something they could manage with medication, though never quite eliminate. The shimmer moved closer, its form suggesting limbs and a head, but geometric in ways that made Ray's eyes hurt if he focused too long. In 2 hours, he'd be performing the biggest comedy gig of his life. The first human comedian booked at Orbital Punchline, the premier club on Nexus Station. His one shot at breaking into the interspecies comedy circuit. And the hallucinations were worse here than they'd ever been on Earth. Fuck it, Ray said, twisting the cap off the bottle. Instead of shaking a pill into his palm, he upended the entire contents into the toilet and flushed. The shimmer behind him pulsed, expanding slightly as if in surprise. I don't need this shit, Ray told his hallucination as he watched the pills disappear. I'm done dulling my senses. The shimmer followed him out of the bathroom.
Remember, you're not just representing yourself tonight, you're representing humanity,
Belinda Kapoor said, her dark eyes serious despite the purple holographic business suit that screamed entertainment agent. She'd taken a chance signing Ray after seeing him perform at a dive club in Oakland, and now she was betting her reputation on his success. No pressure, Ray replied, peeking through the curtain at the diverse crowd. Trinaxians with their multiple eye stalks waving in excitement, a group of Mescan lizard folk, scales gleaming under the stage lights, even a few Prith, their ammonia-based biology requiring them to wear specialized environment suits shaped like antique diving gear. And among them all, more of the shimmering figures. Ray counted at least a dozen, moving through the crowd, pausing near groups that were laughing hardest at the current performer. A Hadar comedian whose jokes about photosynthesis were killing with the plant-based species in the audience.
Were you medicated properly?
Belinda asked, noticing his dilated pupils.
You seem sharper than usual.
Took a lower dose, Ray lied. Wanted to stay alert for my first big break. Belinda frowned but nodded.
Don't screw this up, Okoa. I had to call in every favor I had just to get you this slot.
The Hadar finished to enthusiastic applause and light wave emissions from the photosynthesizers. The club's MC, a tall, multi-jointed Tescan, bounded onto the stage. And now, citizens of all classifications, Orbital Punchline is proud to present the first human comedians to grace our stage. His unique perspective on galactic society has been described as disturbingly insightful and possibly a sign of neural damage. Please welcome Ray Okoa. Belinda gave him a small shove.
That's you. Remember.
I know. Don't make us look bad. Ray straightened his jacket and walked onto the stage. The lights were brighter than Ray expected, momentarily blinding him. He squinted, feeling the familiar thrum of adrenaline mixed with a raw clarity he hadn't experienced on stage in years. When his vision cleared, he saw hundreds of eyes and other sensory organs fixed on him. The pressure was immense, a tangible weight in the recycled station air, but without the usual chemical fog dulling his senses, he felt
dangerously, thrillingly present.
Thank you. Wow, Nexus Station, huh? Ray gripped the mic stand, leaning into it slightly. It's great to be here. Seriously, this is easily the most diverse crowd I've ever played to. Back on Earth, my audience is usually just one species. Two, if you count the rats. A wave of chuckles rolled through the room. The Trinaxians, with their multi-stocked appreciation for dry wit, seemed particularly amused. Yeah, humans. We're kind of the new kids on the galactic block, you know? Still figuring shit out. Ray paced a small section of the stage. Like last week, I tried to shake hands with a Mescan delegate. He mimed extending his hand, then recoiled dramatically. Turns out for them, that's like whipping it out and proposing marriage right there on the docking bay floor. He adopted a stiff, lizard-like posture, lowering his voice. Sir, while I appreciate the directness, my broodmother requires a courtship period involving ritual combat and the ceremonial exchange of shedding skin. Are you prepared to molt? The laughter was louder this time, a genuine roar from the Mescan table who slapped their tails appreciatively. Ray felt the connection, the energy flowing back from the crowd, feeding him. He riffed for a few more minutes, hitting the easy stuff. Translation errors, atmospheric preferences, the sheer existential horror of trying to navigate alien grocery stores. The audience was locked in. Even the shimmering figures seemed to be paying attention. He could see them, clearer than ever without the meds, congregating near the back, by the service corridor entrance. Faint, translucent shapes, like heat haze, sculpted into impossible angles. His old friends. Riding the wave of laughter and the clean burn of being fully awake in his own skull, Ray decided it was time. He leaned conspiratorially into the mic. You know, he started, his tone shifting slightly, becoming more confiding, more like a guy complaining at a bar. It's actually kind of wild performing like this, clear-headed. He tapped his temple. See, back home they got me on these little orange pills, supposed to, stabilize my perceptions. A fancy talk for stop seeing shit that ain't there. A few uneasy murmurs mixed with curious chuckles. He had their attention. Yeah, 'cause apparently, Ray continued, adopting a mock-exasperated tone, channeling a bit of his therapy sessions. My brain, it likes to throw its own little private film festival. You know? Real abstract stuff, like David Lynch directing a screensaver. He shook his head, playing up the annoyance. Doctors called him visual artifacts stemming from atypical neurosynaptic activity. I call him the reason I'm still single at 35. He paused, scanning the crowd, letting the self-deprecation land. It's usually just little things, right? Like, okay, nobody else is seeing shimmery, kind of see-through coat racks just vibing near the emergency exit back there, right? He gestured vaguely towards the back corner where the figures clustered, not pointing directly yet. No? Just me? Cool. Standard Tuesday. The audience laughed, assuming it was part of the bit, a lead-in to another joke about human weirdness. The shimmering figures seemed to shift, almost imperceptibly. Yeah, those things. Ray zeroed in now, his voice gaining a sharper edge, mimicking the frustration he'd felt for years. My shrink, bless her heart, she'd say, Ray, they're not real. They're manifestations of unresolved childhood trauma. And I'm like, Doc, that's great, but the manifestation just judged my parallel parking. He took a breath, then pointed directly, emphatically at the cluster of shimmering figures. Look at him, right there! His voice rose, not in alarm, but in comedic accusation. The wavy dudes think they're slick, hanging out in the back, acting like they forgot to pay the cover charge. He gave a dramatic wink towards them. I see you, you translucent fuckers. Think you're invisible? You ain't invisible. You're just weird looking. Doc says you ain't real? Fine. Then stop blocking the fire escape, you goddamn hallucinations. What happened next ripped the laughter from the air. The moment Ray pointed and yelled, the shimmering figures he designated as mere figments of his imagination convulsed. Their translucent forms flickered violently, then momentarily snapped into something horrifyingly solid. Shadowy, fractured shapes of impossible geometry, briefly occupying real space with palpable wrongness, before vanishing utterly. But everyone saw it, that fleeting, nightmarish solidity. The club exploded, not with laughter, but with shrieks, hisses, startled chirps, and frantic rustling. Trinaxian eye stalks whipped around like panicked antennae. The Meskans sprang into defensive crouches, emitting low growls. The Prit's environment suits instantly clouded with opaque emergency gas, releasing sharp pheromonal alarms that smelled acridly of ozone and fear. Amber emergency lights strobed along the ceiling. A calm, utterly inadequate synthetic voice intoned. Attention. Unauthorized dimensional fluctuations detected in Sector Gamma 9. Please remain calm. Security personnel are en route. The Tescan MC scrambled back onto the stage, its multiple limbs flailing, multifaceted eyes wide with terror. Technical difficulties, esteemed patrons. Yes, very advanced pyrotechnics. Please remain seated. Our technicians are, rebooting the reality matrix. Ray stood frozen for a second, the adrenaline rush turning to ice water in his veins. He hadn't expected that. He'd just been doing a bit, hadn't he? Then Belinda was there, her grip like steel on his arm, yanking him bodily off the stage.
Ray, what the actual fuck was that?
She hissed, her voice barely audible over the rising chaos as security drones zipped past them toward the main room. She dragged him towards the relative quiet of the backstage corridor.
What was what?
Ray stammered, still trying to process the synchronized gasp and subsequent panic of hundreds of beings.
Don't play dumb with me!
Belinda spun him around, her face pale under the emergency lighting.
That whole hallucination routine, and then those things, those projections, holograms, whatever, flickering into existence where you pointed. Was that some kind of insane publicity stunt? Because if you use unauthorized tech on this station again, they won't just fine us, they'll throw us out the nearest airlock.
Ray stared at her, his brain struggling to catch up. Wait, you saw them? Shimmery things, the coat racks.
Everyone saw them, you idiots!
Belinda practically yelled.
When you pointed right at that empty corner and started shouting about hallucinations, they just appeared. Station security is going to impound all our equipment.
Ray's mind felt like it was short-circuiting. Everyone saw them. When he pointed, when he called them hallucinations. Belinda, he said, his voice suddenly quiet, detached. Those weren't projections. I've been seeing those things my whole life, since I was a kid. The doctors called them hallucinations. I've been on medication for them since I was 7. Belinda's furious expression faltered, replaced by dawning horror. Her eyes scanned his face, noting the undiluted intensity, the lack of his usual medicated haze.
Oh God, you're not medicated now, are you?
I flushed them, Ray admitted, the words tasting like ash. He leaned against the corridor wall, the metal cool against his back. Belinda, if everyone saw them this time, they're not hallucinations. They're real.
Real?
Belinda whispered, glancing nervously back towards the stage as if expecting impossible shapes to pour through.
I don't know what's going on, Ray, but real interdimensional beings manifesting during your set is catastrophically bad for business.
She fumbled for her comm device, already shifting into damage control mode.
I need to call legal. Maybe an exorcist.
As his agent frantically typed messages into her device, Ray slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, his head in his hands. His hallucinations, the things that had defined his life, isolated him, medicated him into numbness. They were real. They were actually, tangibly real. And he'd just introduced them to the galaxy by making fun of them on stage. He wasn't sure if he should be terrified, vindicated, or start writing new material. Maybe all three. Ray couldn't sleep that night. His quarters on Nexus Station, a tiny pod, barely enough for a bed and toilet, felt even more claustrophobic as he replayed the events at the club over and over in his mind. Belinda had managed to smooth things over with the venue, claiming it was an experimental holographic element of Ray's act that had malfunctioned. The station security seemed skeptical, but couldn't find any projection devices. The incident was being written off as a technical anomaly, albeit one that had garnered Ray significant attention. His social media following had tripled overnight, with his name trending across several planets. Belinda had already managed to smooth things over with the venue, claiming it was an experimental holographic element of Ray's act that had malfunctioned. The station security seemed skeptical, but couldn't find any projection devices. The incident was being written off as a technical anomaly, albeit one that had garnered Ray significant attention. His social media following had tripled overnight, with his name trending across several planets. Belinda had already received offers for more bookings. Ray should have been ecstatic. Instead, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the shimmering figures to reappear. They hadn't shown themselves since the incident at the club. Just as he was finally drifting off to sleep, the air in his room rippled like heat waves over asphalt. A shimmering form coalesced at the foot of his bed, more defined than any he had seen before. Ray sat up, his heart pounding. "I'm not hallucinating, am I?" The figure solidified further, taking on an almost humanoid shape, though its proportions were subtly wrong, its limbs bending at angles that shouldn't have been possible. Its surface seemed to shift between transparency and a swirling, iridescent pattern that hurt Ray's eyes if he looked too long.
"No, Ray Akora, you are not hallucinating,"
it said, its voice like whispered echoes.
"I am Cairn, and you have created quite a problem for my people."
"Your people?" Ray edged backward until he was pressed against the wall. "What exactly are you?"
"We are the Thela. We exist partially in dimensions higher than the 3 spatial dimensions you primarily inhabit. This makes us naturally imperceptible to most 3-dimensional beings."
"But I can see you. How the hell can I see you?" Karen's form shifted, parts of it seeming to fold into themselves in ways Ray's brain couldn't quite process.
"Yes, a small percentage of humans possess this ability. Approximately 0.01% of your population. Most are diagnosed with various mental disorders and medicated as you were. We've observed this phenomenon, but considered it inconsequential given the affected human's social marginalization."
"You've been watching us?"
"We observe all species. We are the watchers of the cosmos, the silent guides of evolution. For millennia, we have moved unseen among countless civilizations, studying, occasionally influencing when necessary."
Ray laughed bitterly. "I spent my whole life being told I was crazy, being pumped full of drugs that made me feel half dead, and you're telling me I was just seeing something real that most people can't perceive."
"I understand this is distressing for you,"
Cairn said, though his tone conveyed no emotion Ray could recognize.
"But your actions tonight have caused a far greater disturbance than you can imagine. Your public acknowledgement of our existence, followed by our momentary manifestation, was broadcast across the station. The recording has already spread throughout our communication networks. Our society is in turmoil.
I'm sorry for causing trouble, but I didn't exactly know you existed until 5 minutes ago.
Our people are divided. Some, like myself, believe human perception of higher dimensions indicates your species is evolving toward a more complex consciousness. We call ourselves elevationists. Others, the preservationists, see human perception as a threat to our way of life. Our entire social structure is built upon our invisibility.
Ray rubbed his temples. So, what happens now?
That depends partly on you,
Cairn said.
I have taken a great risk by fully manifesting to speak with you. I believe you can help us understand how humans perceive us. In return, I can reveal truths about reality that your species hasn't yet discovered.
Why me? Why not some physicist or philosopher?
Your comedy, your ability to find humor in the absurd and connect with diverse species, suggests you possess a unique perspective, the capacity to bridge worlds through understanding.
Ray had spent his whole life being told there was something wrong with his brain. Now an interdimensional being was suggesting that his perception and his comedy might be exactly what was needed. Man, this is the strangest job offer I've ever received, Ray said with a weak smile. Over the next week, Ray's career exploded. News of the dimensional incident spread across the station and beyond, with audiences flocking to his shows hoping to witness another strange occurrence. Belinda, initially furious about the unauthorized stunt, quickly changed her tune when she saw the booking requests pouring in.
Whatever you did, it's working,
she told him after a sold-out performance. Ray was now spending his days performing comedy and his nights meeting secretly with interdimensional beings. After the third consecutive sold-out show, Belinda took Ray to celebrate at the Quantum Drift, one of the station's most exclusive lounges. The place was designed to cater to multiple species, with sections maintaining different atmospheric conditions separated by barely visible force fields. The central bar, accessible to oxygen breathers, floated on anti-grav pods above a dance floor where holographic patterns swirled in time with alien music that somehow managed to be both ethereal and danceable.
To the weirdest human comedian in the galaxy,
Belinda said, raising a glass of something purple that occasionally emitted small sparks. Ray clinked his more conventional whiskey against her glass. Thanks for taking a chance on me.
Are you kidding? Look around.
She gestured to the diverse crowd. Several beings were pointing at Ray, whispering to their companions.
You're practically a station celebrity now, the mysterious human who somehow interacts with dimensional anomalies. I've had 3 different xenoanthropologists contact me wanting to study your performances.
A group of Trinaxians approached their table, eye stalks wobbling in what Ray had learned was excitement. Apologies for interruption, one said, their translator giving them a formal, slightly stilted cadence. We attended performance yesterday. Most intriguing question. How do you perceive the between spaces? Between spaces? Ray asked. Yes, fold regions where reality bends. The Trinaxian made a complicated gesture with 3 of their limbs. Our ancient texts speak of such things, but few Trinaxians have experienced them directly. Your performance awakened something, momentary glimpses of the curved geometries. Ray noticed several shimmering Thala forms hovering near the Trinaxians, studying them with apparent interest. I'm not sure I understand exactly what you mean, Ray said carefully. My abilities are still something I'm figuring out myself. The Trinaxians vibrated with what might have been disappointment or understanding. Ray wasn't familiar enough with their body language to tell. We have a theory. another Trinaxian offered.
Perhaps human neural pathways allow dimensional overlap perception. Most fascinating evolutionary adaptation.
That's an interesting perspective, Ray replied, acutely aware of the Thela now gathering around their table, unseen by everyone except him. I'd love to hear more about those ancient texts you mentioned. As the conversation continued, Ray realized something significant. He wasn't just exposing the Thela to other beings, he was also exposing other beings to entirely new ways of perceiving reality. The implications were staggering. After the Trinaxians departed, Belinda leaned in.
You know, we could package this. Ray Okoa, the Dimension Whisperer, or something catchier. Maybe develop some merchandise? Holographic t-shirts that seem to shift in and out of reality?
Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Ray said, distracted by a particularly bold Thela that was hovering directly behind Belinda, its geometric form seeming to study her intently. He forced himself not to stare at it.
Too late for that,
Belinda laughed.
The local entertainment feeds are already speculating about your next show. Some think you've got implants that let you perceive different wavelengths. Others think you're only part human.
She tapped something on her comm device.
I've already had offers for exclusive interviews, product endorsements. There's even talk of a documentary.
Belinda, I
know, art before commerce, but trust me, we need to capitalize on this momentum before someone else with a similar gimmick comes along.
It's not a gimmick, Ray said quietly. Belinda's expression softened slightly.
Look, I get it. You're protective of your creative process, but this is the big time, Ray. Whatever you're doing, however you're creating these effects, it's working. Don't overthink it.
Ray took a long drink, letting the whiskey burn down his throat. How could he explain that he wasn't creating anything, that he was simply acknowledging what had been there all along? The Thela behind Belinda moved closer, its form extending a tendril-like projection that nearly touched her shoulder. Ray couldn't help himself. Don't, he said sharply. Belinda blinked.
Don't what? I'm just trying to help your career.
No, not you. Ray fumbled for an explanation, then sighed. Sorry, I thought I saw someone about to spill a drink on you. Belinda glanced around, then raised an eyebrow.
Your imagination is working overtime, my friend.
Yeah, Ray agreed, watching as the Thela retreated. Occupational hazard. Later, as they were leaving the lounge, Ray felt a familiar ripple in the air beside him. He excused himself to use the restroom, leaving Belinda chatting with a Mescan entertainment producer. In the relative privacy of the restroom's antechamber, Ray turned to face the shimmering form that had followed him. Cairn? The Thela materialized more fully, its geometric pattern settling into the now familiar configuration Ray associated with his interdimensional mentor.
Your perception is improving, Cairn noted. You recognized me before I fully manifested.
I'm getting better at distinguishing between different Thela. Your patterns are more organized than others.
An apt observation, but I must warn you, your interactions with the Trinaxians have not gone unnoticed by the preservationists. They are disturbed that another species shows signs of developing higher dimensional perception.
Trinaxians mentioned ancient texts, Ray said. It sounds like they've had some awareness of higher dimensions for generations.
Yes, like humans, various species occasionally produce individuals with enhanced perception. Usually, these individuals are dismissed as mystics or madmen, but your public acknowledgement is creating a resonance. Those with latent abilities are beginning to recognize what they perceive as real rather than imaginary, a potential cascade effect.
Isn't that a good thing? Greater understanding across dimensions?
The elevationists believe so. But change is never simple, Ray Okoa. The balance of cosmic knowledge has remained stable for millennia. Rapid shifts can have unpredictable consequences.
So what should I do?
Continue as you are, but be cautious. The preservationists are growing more concerned. They might take more direct action to contain the situation.
You mean to contain me?
Yes.
Cairn's form began to fade.
Be vigilant, and perhaps consider what you would do if your agent discovered the truth.
Belinda, she'd never believe it.
Are you certain? She has built her career on recognizing potential others cannot see. Do not underestimate her.
With that cryptic warning, Cairn vanished, leaving Ray alone with his thoughts and a growing sense that things were accelerating beyond his control. Cairn had introduced him to other elevationists, Thela who believed human perception presented a positive evolutionary step. They taught Ray to better perceive their natural state, showing him how to focus his vision to see more clearly into higher dimensions. In return, Ray helped them understand human perception and consciousness, primarily through comedy and art, concepts the Thela found fascinating but difficult to grasp.
Humor is based on unexpected connections,
Ray explained during one session.
It's about seeing patterns and then breaking them in surprising ways.
Like perceiving dimensions others cannot see,
replied a Thela named Linth, whose form seemed to constantly fold inward like an infinite origami.
Exactly. You guys should be comedy naturals.
The Thela showed Ray things that defied conventional physics, shortcuts through higher dimensions that allowed them to move through seemingly solid objects or appear in multiple places simultaneously. They demonstrated how reality was far more complex and malleable than humanity understood, with layers upon layers of dimensional space existing alongside what humans perceived as normal. But not all Thela were pleased with these exchanges. The preservationists, led by an elder named Morth, had begun a campaign to discredit Ray. During performances, he experienced unexplained technical difficulties, microphones cutting out, lighting malfunctions, environmental controls briefly failing. Station officials began investigating him for substance abuse after anonymous reports.
They're trying to have you declared mentally unstable and returned to Earth,
Cairn warned after a particularly difficult show where Ray had to perform through constant sound system failures.
They believe if you're reinstitutionalized, your claims about seeing us will be dismissed.
Why are they so afraid of being seen?
Ray asked.
Our entire civilization is built on invisibility. We observe, we study, we occasionally guide, but always unseen. The preservationists fear that if humans widely discover their perceptive abilities, our purpose would be lost.
Is that so terrible?
For some, yes. The preservationists believe our purpose is to watch, not to engage. They fear becoming entangled in the chaotic affairs of lower dimensional beings.
No offense, but that sounds kind of arrogant. Cairn's form rippled in what Ray had come to recognize as amusement.
Many elevationists agree with you.
During his next performance, Ray spotted preservationist Thela attempting to sabotage the lighting system. Rather than ignore them, he incorporated their actions into his routine.
Is anyone else seeing the lighting getting weird? No?
Just me?
Maybe it's those higher dimensional beings I mentioned, messing with the controls. See that panel over there with the shimmering distortion? They're probably upset I revealed their existence. Oh no, the monkey can see us! Quick, make his spotlight flicker. That'll teach him.
The audience laughed, thinking it was part of the act, but as Ray described the Thela in detail, their geometric forms, their shimmering surfaces, the way they seemed to fold into themselves, something remarkable happened. Several humans in the audience began to squint, then widen their eyes in shock as they began to perceive flickering shapes near the lighting controls. A Trinaxian sitting near the front suddenly oriented several eye stalks toward the control panel, suggesting they too had caught a glimpse of something unusual. The preservationist Thala fled, but the damage was done. Ray had demonstrated that human perception of higher dimensions could be taught or triggered under the right circumstances. After the show, a woman was waiting backstage, flashing a security badge.
Carrie Patel, Nexus Station Security,
She said.
we need to talk.
Ray prepared his excuses about holographic malfunctions, but Carrie cut him off.
I saw them too,
She said quietly.
the shimmering figures. I've been seeing them my whole life.
Ray stared at her in shock. You're like me?
Apparently. Though unlike you, I never sought treatment. I just learned to ignore them. Until your first show here, I thought I was the only one who could see them.
They're called the Thala. They exist partially in higher dimensions.
I gathered that from watching your performances.
Carrie glanced around.
Listen, there have been reports of unusual phenomena across the station since your shows began. People glimpsing things they can't explain, technical malfunctions, and now station management is starting to take notice.
Is that why you're here? To shut me down?
No, I'm here because I think you're in danger. The Thala you've pissed off? They're escalating.
As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the entertainment sector. The station's AI announced, "Attention! Life support fluctuations detected in Entertainment Sector 7. Temporary evacuation recommended." The backstage area erupted in chaos as staff and performers rushed toward the exits.
This isn't a coincidence,
Carrie said, grabbing Ray's arm.
come with me.
They slipped through a maintenance access panel, Carrie using her security clearance to navigate through restricted areas of the station. They emerged in a quiet observation dome, the curved, transparent ceiling offering a breathtaking view of the star field beyond.
We should be safe here temporarily.
Carrie said, activating a security lockdown on the entrance.
Station systems show the life support malfunction was triggered manually, but there's no record of who accessed the controls.
The Thala, Ray confirmed. The ones who don't want to be seen.
Why can we see them when others can't?
According to Cairn, one of the friendly ones, about 0.01% of humans have the natural ability to perceive higher dimensions. Something about a neural pathways, but it can be taught and spread if you're open to it. Carrie nodded.
And now you're teaching others to see them too.
Not intentionally, but apparently it's happening. Ray explained everything Cairn told him about the elevationists and the preservationists, the Thala's role as observers, and their divided response to human perception. As they talked, the air in the observation dome rippled, and several Thala manifested, more solid than Ray had ever seen them outside his private meetings with Cairn. These were different, their forms sharper, more angular, radiating what felt like anger.
"Raymond Acor,"
one said, its voice like grinding metal.
"You have violated the natural order. You will come with us."
Carrie drew her sidearm, though Ray doubted it would be effective against beings that existed partially in other dimensions.
Station security,
She announced.
identify yourselves.
The lead Thala's form expanded, looming over them.
"We are the correction of an error. This human has interfered with the proper functioning of dimensional boundaries. He must be removed."
He's not going anywhere,
Carrie replied, standing her ground. The Thala lunged forward, its limbs elongating impossibly. Carrie fired, the energy pulse passing harmlessly through the being. In response, the Thala's arm swept through her, not physically touching her, but somehow causing Carrie to collapse in pain. Ray, acting on instinct rather than plan, concentrated the way Cairn had taught him, focusing his perception on the higher dimensions where the Thala existed more fully. He reached out, not with his physical hand, but with his mind, grabbing what felt like a loose thread in the Thala's dimensional fabric. The being shrieked, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The other Thala backed away, clearly surprised. "Leave us alone," Ray said, maintaining his mental grip. "I don't want to hurt you, but I will defend myself." The Thala's form wavered, then collapsed in on itself, all of them vanishing as suddenly as they had appeared. Carrie sat up, gasping.
What did you do?
I'm not entirely sure, Ray admitted, helping her to her feet. The elevationists have been teaching me to perceive higher dimensions better. I guess I've learned more than I realized.
This is getting dangerous,
Carrie said.
We need help.
I know someone who might provide it, Ray replied, if we can reach out to them. The next day, reports of strange sightings flooded station security. Crew members and visitors alike described glimpsing shadowy, geometrically impossible figures that vanished when directly observed. Some reported feeling watched. Others experienced brief moments of disorientation where the station's corridors seemed to bend in impossible ways. Ray and Carrie met with Cairn in a rarely used storage bay, the Thala fully manifested and clearly agitated.
The preservationists have taken drastic action,
Cairn explained.
They've decided to break our most sacred law by revealing themselves to station authorities.
But isn't that exactly what they were trying to prevent?
Carrie asked.
They're claiming to be a newly discovered species making first contact. They've accused Ray of using illegal mind-altering technology on his audiences, suggesting he's artificially enhancing perception to detect their naturally subtle presence.
That's ridiculous, Ray protested.
Is it?
Carrie countered.
From the outside, it might make sense. Humans attend your shows, then suddenly start seeing things that weren't there before. If these preservationists present themselves as innocent aliens being forcibly exposed by your technology, station authorities might believe them.
As if confirming her assessment, Ray's comm device buzzed with a message from Belinda. Station security looking for you. Something about illegal neural tech. Don't come to booked show. Laying low.
They're moving faster than I expected,
Cairn said, form flickering in what Ray had learned to recognize as concern.
The preservationists have allies among station officials, beings we've guided or influenced over the years who trust us without fully understanding what we are.
So, what do we do now? Ray asked.
We need to present the truth before the preservationists' version becomes accepted reality,
Carrie said.
But we need proof.
Ray thought for a moment. My shows. There's something about them that's helping people perceive the Thala.
Yes,
Cairn confirmed.
We've analyzed your performances. The combination of cognitive pattern shifts during humor and your specific brainwave patterns creates a resonance that temporarily enhances dimensional perception in those exposed to it. It's stronger in humans, but affects some other species as well.
So, if I could perform for the entire station, Ray began.
You'd be arrested the moment you appeared in public,
Carrie pointed out. Not if we bypass the normal entertainment channels. Ray's eyes lit up. Carrie, with your security access, could we hack into the station's announcement system?
Technically, yes, but it would be a serious violation of...
There's a major diplomatic event tonight,
Cairn interrupted.
Representatives from over 30 species will be gathered in the Central Plaza for a cultural exchange ceremony.
Perfect, Ray said. If I can broadcast to that audience, we could reveal the truth about the Thala to the entire galactic community at once. Carrie hesitated.
This could cost me my job, possibly get me arrested, maybe even assassinated at this rate.
It could also prevent an interdimensional war, Ray countered, and prove once and for all that we're not crazy. After a moment, Carrie nodded.
All right, let's do it.
The plan came together quickly. Carrie used her security credentials to access a maintenance hub overlooking the Central Plaza. From there, they could patch into the audio-visual systems and broadcast Ray's performance to everyone attending the diplomatic event. While Carrie worked on the technical setup, Ray sat cross-legged in a corner of the maintenance hub, trying to calm his racing thoughts. This wasn't just about clearing his name anymore. It wasn't even about proving he wasn't crazy. This was about bridging worlds, about reshaping how sentient beings across the galaxy understood reality itself.
You look terrified.
Carrie observed, pausing in her work to sit beside him. Wouldn't you be? Ray asked with a nervous laugh. Yesterday I was just a comedian. Today I am about to announce the existence of interdimensional beings to representatives of 30 different species. It's a bit of a career pivot. Carrie smiled, her expression softening.
You know, when I first started seeing them, the Thala, I was 4 years old. My parents thought I had an imaginary friend.
That sounds better than my experience. The doctors put me on medication almost immediately.
The difference is I never told anyone what I was really seeing,
Carrie said.
I learned early on to pretend I was playing normal imaginary games. Then, as I got older, I just stopped mentioning them altogether, learned to ignore them.
That must have been lonely, Ray said. Carrie shrugged.
I made it work. Got into security because I figured having legitimate access to surveillance systems would make it easier to hide the fact that I sometimes saw things others didn't. If anyone caught me staring at empty space, I could claim I was monitoring something.
Smart.
But I always wondered if there were others like me. That's why when I saw your show, when I realized you could see them too.
She trailed off, studying her hands.
It meant I wasn't alone.
Ray reached out and squeezed her shoulder. Neither of us is alone anymore. They sat in companionable silence for a moment before Carrie spoke again.
So, what made you go into comedy? With your unique perspective, you could have done anything.
Ray laughed. Precisely because of my unique perspective. When you spend your childhood being told your perceptions aren't real, you develop a certain appreciation for the absurd. I figured if I couldn't trust what I was seeing, I might as well find the humor in it.
And now it turns out you were seeing something real all along.
Life's funny that way, Ray said. But comedy was also a way to connect. When people laugh together, there's this moment of shared perception. Everyone experiencing the same emotional release simultaneously. It's the closest I ever got to feeling normal. Carrie nodded.
And now you're going to use that skill to help an entire galaxy share a new perception.
When you put it that way, it sounds impossible.
Maybe it is,
Carrie admitted.
But I've spent my whole life pretending not to see what's right in front of me. I'm tired of it. Even if this doesn't work, at least we tried to show others the truth.
Their conversation was interrupted by Cairn's arrival, the Thala materializing more fully than Ray had ever seen outside their private sessions.
The diplomatic ceremony is about to begin,
Cairn reported.
Representatives from all major galactic powers are gathering.
The preservationists have already made contact with station officials, presenting their version of events.
Then we need to hurry,
Carrie said, returning to her work on the broadcast system. Ray stood up, stretching his tense muscles. Cairn, can I ask you something I've been wondering about? The Thala's form rippled in what Ray had come to recognize as curiosity.
Of course.
Why comedy? Why does my comedy specifically help people perceive higher dimensions? Cairn's geometric patterns shifted in contemplation.
Humor requires cognitive flexibility, the ability to perceive multiple layers of meaning simultaneously and recognize incongruities between them. In many ways, it is the perfect mental state for beginning to perceive dimensional overlap.
So, when people laugh at my jokes,
their minds momentarily become more receptive to perceptions outside their normal framework,
Cairn confirmed.
But it is more than that. Your specific neural patterns, the unique way your brain processes information, creates a resonance that helps attune others to these perceptions.
Like a tuning fork, Carrie suggested, not looking up from her work.
A simplified but accurate analogy, Karen agreed. Ray's comedic delivery acts as a tuning fork, helping others' perceptions vibrate at frequencies closer to what is needed to glimpse higher dimensions.
Ray took a deep breath. No pressure, then.
We're ready,
Carrie announced, finishing the final connections.
The system is primed. Once I activate it, you'll have access to every screen and speaker in the plaza.
Before he could respond, the air around them rippled violently. Thala materialized, both elevationists led by Cairn and preservationists led by the severe-looking Morth.
You cannot do this,
Morth said, his form jagged and threatening.
You will destabilize the entire cosmic order.
The cosmic order is already changing,
Cairn countered.
Humanity is evolving. Fighting this is like trying to stop a star from forming.
Then we will fight,
Morth replied, his form expanding as other preservationists moved to surround them. As the two faced off, Ray had a sudden realization. The Thala weren't actually afraid of being seen. They were afraid of being understood. Their power came not from invisibility, but from mystery, from existing beyond comprehension.
Wait!
Ray shouted, stepping between the factions.
This isn't about visibility. It's about connection.
Both groups paused, attention focusing on him.
Cairn, you told me the Thala have been watching and occasionally guiding species across the galaxy. That's not just observation, it's interaction, even if it's been one-sided until now. You want to connect, to share knowledge, to be part of the cosmic community.
Cairn's form pulsed in what Ray had come to recognize as agreement.
And Morth, you're afraid that if other beings can perceive you, your special place in the cosmos will be lost. But what if it's not lost, just transformed? What if instead of being unseen observers, you become known guides, visible but still respected for your unique perspective?
Morth's jagged form softened slightly.
Our entire civilization is built on separation.
Maybe it's time for that to change,
Ray suggested.
Not by force or exposure, but by choice. Evolution isn't just about biology, it's about cultural adaptation too.
Carrie, who had been monitoring the plaza, whispered urgently.
Ray, they're starting the ceremony. It's now or never.
Ray looked from Cairn to Morth, then back to Carrie.
Do it.
She activated the system, and every screen in the central plaza switched to show Ray's face. The assembled diplomats and officials looked up in confusion as his voice echoed through the speakers.
Good evening, distinguished representatives. I'm Ray Akoa, human comedian and, until recently, psychiatric patient. I'm interrupting your ceremony to tell you about the beings that exist among us, partially in dimensions we can't normally perceive. They're called the Thala.
Ray explained everything. How the Thala existed in higher dimensions, how they had observed countless species for millennia, how they were now at a crossroads because humans could sometimes perceive them.
I'm not asking you to take my word for it, Ray continued. Instead, I invite the Thala present to make a choice. You can remain hidden, fighting a losing battle against evolving perception, or you can choose to be seen, to allow yourselves to be perceived by those ready to understand you.
In the plaza below, murmurs of confusion spread through the crowd. Some officials were already signaling security, while others watched with curious interest. Ray turned to the Thala surrounding him.
What do you choose?
After a tense moment, Cairn moved forward, his form beginning to shimmer more brightly.
I choose to be seen.
One by one, other elevationists followed suit, their forms becoming more visible, more present in three-dimensional space. Morth hesitated, his form flickering between visibility and hiding. Finally, he too stepped forward.
If change must come, let it be by our choice, not forced upon us.
As the Thala partially manifested, gasps and cries of shock echoed through the plaza. Some beings recoiled in fear, others leaned forward in fascination. Security drones hovered uncertainly, their protocols insufficient for this unprecedented situation. "These beings are not invaders or threats," Ray continued through the broadcast. "They are watchers, guides, beings with a perspective that spans dimensions. They've been here all along, and now, for the first time, they're allowing themselves to be seen. Not because they have to, but because they choose to." In the plaza, a Trinaxian diplomat was the first to approach a partially manifested Thala, eye stalks waving in what Ray recognized as their expression of profound curiosity. Slowly, representatives from other species followed suit, forming a historic first contact moment unlike any the galaxy had seen before. Carrie squeezed Ray's shoulder.
I think it's working.
A new paradigm,
Cairn said, his form glowing with intensity.
Not invisibility or full manifestation, but something in between. A gradual revelation to those ready to perceive us.
"And what happens now?" Ray asked.
Now,
Morth said, his formerly jagged form now flowing more smoothly.
we learn to exist in a universe where we are known, and you, Ray Akoa, will help us navigate this transition.
6 months later, Ray stepped onto the stage of a comedy club in Oakland, California, the same dive where Belinda had first discovered him. The audience was primarily human, though a few aliens sat at tables near the back, visitors to Earth curious about authentic human cultural experiences. Ray had spent the intervening months as an unofficial ambassador between humans and the now partially revealed Thala. A new scientific field had emerged, studying higher dimensional perception, with Ray and Carrie among its first documented cases. Medication protocols were being revised for those previously diagnosed with hallucinations that might actually be Thala perception. "It's great to be back on Earth," Ray began. "Space stations are amazing, but let me tell you, nothing beats gravity that stays consistent throughout the day." The audience laughed, and Ray settled into his routine, weaving stories about his experiences with aliens, bureaucracy, and the absurdities of being the first human to make official contact with interdimensional beings. As he spoke, he noticed shimmering forms appearing among the audience. Thala, partially manifesting to observe. Most of the humans couldn't see them yet, but Ray knew that would change. Already, perception training programs were being developed, helping humans and other species gradually expand their dimensional awareness. Near the end of his set, Ray paused, looking directly at the Thala observers. With a smile, he winked and said, "I see you." This time, it wasn't a shock or revelation, it was an acknowledgement, a bridge between dimensions built not on exposure but on mutual choice and understanding. A few humans in the audience followed his gaze, their eyes widening as they caught glimpses of shimmering forms. A woman in the front row gasped softly, then raised her hand in a tentative wave toward a Thala near the bar. Ray smiled. The cosmic order wasn't being disrupted, it was expanding, one perception at a time.